So we're back, taking a break from our best innings series, but that will be back very soon. But we thought that because there's so much cricket going on in the world, international and domestic, if you're a Pakistan follower, I wouldn't say fan or supporter. So there's lots to talk about. We thought we'll discuss all the current series ongoing: India, Bangladesh, South Africa, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, New Zealand, and of course the mighty Champions Cup in Pakistan. Although Pakistan is also due to play an international test series very soon. But yeah, I think we'll start off with well, we've tried to keep the last few episodes a bit more positive. Maybe not the last one, but the one before that in terms of Pakistan cricket. But I guess we're back to bashing Pakistan cricket and the quality of it. And I'll start with the Champions Cup, where if you look at the stats and the performances, how we've been going on, Moeen, about Pakistan's talent and this and that. And then when you have the PSL and you have these tournaments, local tournaments, it's the same Babar Azam, Shadab Khan who are coming to the fore, scoring the runs.
I mean, look,
I'm not sure if it's, you should be happy that he's scoring the runs, or you should be like worried about it from Pakistan cricket's point of view that there's literally no depth.
it's difficult, right? It's really I don't think we've experienced a conundrum like this before, where you know you want your good players to find form in these cups, but yet you always take it with a pinch of salt because you know the quality is so subpar compared to international standards, and we think that these cricketers will again get you know get ahead of themselves, right? Look, if you told me before the Champions Cup, would you want a Babar Azam that's firing or not? I would obviously say firing, right? I'd want a Shadab Khan that's firing. But for me, it's not the stats, it's the quality around those stats. So I'll take Shadab Khan's example. If you look at a lot of his wickets, the wickets are just down to bad batting. Okay, whether it's slogs that make no sense, or whether it's poor defensive technique, big gap between bat and pad, playing on the back foot, etc., etc. I just think it's those stats aren't fully reflective of performance. Shadab Khan in particular has been the most frustrating one for me, right? And I've said this time and again in different sort of shape or form, where I get really annoyed that he promises a lot and he has all the ingredients to be a package cricketer, but somehow the bigger the stage, the more he fails. And for me, that's a
Yeah.
really alarming message, right? Against the top quality opposition in high quality games, he has struggled. And that's simply because he hasn't adapted his game since the early days of his career. The point I want to make is you're never going to get a solid crop of players if all they do is play 20 over leagues and 50 over leagues that are of limited
Yeah.
significance in the grand scheme of things, right? It is first class cricket, which is where Shadab came from alongside the PSL, that propelled him to international stardom. And he kept playing first class cricket until 2020. And there's a direct correlation between the amount of first class cricket he's played and his performance
Yeah.
uh, in at the international level. So, look, this Champions Cup is great for in terms of earmarking who our best crop of talent is, but it's not the best forum to actually groom and further develop that talent.
Yeah.
So, absolutely, I'll come out of Champions Cup saying, okay, who are my top 15? Probably not that dissimilar to what they were 6, 7 months
Yeah.
ago, right? With the
Yeah.
exception of a few. I thought Herrera was really impressive. I think now, he's really going to be knocking on the door. I thought Sam Ayoub's bowling, to be honest, was quite good,
Yeah. His batting
right?
has been pretty poor, but
Yeah, his batting been terrible, but his bowling. Now again, I don't know whether it's just poor batting, but I felt some of his
yeah.
balls were pretty good. Barring, I know you'll probably see the replays of the Shahnawaz googly, but my God, the gap between bat and pad, like it's ridiculous. And the shock on Shahnawaz's face as if he faced Warren's ball of the century. I mean, for God's sake, like you know.
Yeah.
But let me end what I'm saying with the most alarming stat. The most expensive bowler in this cup is none other than Shaheen Shah Afridi. For me, if there is ever a glaring warning sign on whether someone needs to be dropped, it's right now.
Yeah. 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 It's not just shines bowling. The quality of his wickets as well. He's taken like 2 or 3 wickets in every other game, but like you say, similar to Shadab, a lot of them have been bad batting rather than good bowling. I think he's not. I don't think he's got many of those classical in swinging new ball wickets.
Not at all.
Um, Similarly, with the batting as well, like you mentioned, obviously Babar Azam has been decent. Kamran Ghulam has got a couple of hundreds. There have been a couple of other individual innings. Abdul Samad, who's come in and done a few.
Herrera.
Yeah, I think Reyes got a couple of starts. Um, Harris, I think, played one good innings, but some of the stuff has also been really bizarre, right? Because you had okay, fine, with the quality of cricket, I think we all knew that it's not going to be anything dissimilar. Deep down inside, we knew that this was, more of a chairman's baby tournament rather than anything else. Um, but some of the weird decisions around, I think Sarfraz was meant to be a mentor, started to play. He played a couple of games and didn't see the rationale behind that. Like you have a if his aim is to groom the like players, then why do you have a 37-year-old keeper who's a mentor who has no like 5 to 5 year future in the team? Why is he playing? Why didn't they just try someone younger who might have been that skilled? Because again, it's a weird thing to say that the aim of the tournament was not to win, right? It should have been to get the best talent out. I guess that was kind of missed somewhere in between. But there have been a couple of positive. I think it was good to have the tournament in Faisalabad. I think
I
that
was
was a
gonna
good
say,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
So I think that
Good to see
that's
big
probably been
crowds in. Yeah, yeah.
that's probably been the biggest thing, and it helps again that you have, for whatever it's worth, your biggest name stars still playing, a domestic tournament, and that's been a good crowd puller as well. So I think that's probably been the biggest positive. It's against frightening to see from a Pakistani point of view that most of the matches, I think, except for the qualifier today, which was a low scoring game, most of them have been like by the team batting first has won. So 270, 280, 300 at times, and then that's not been chased down like the Pakistan of old who found it impossible to chase.
Yeah, I
So
mean exactly, and that really does point some fingers at
yeah,
the ability of batters to absorb pressure, right? There's always more pressure in what you do
yeah,
second, right? So that is for me a big worry because I didn't
yeah,
think the pitch had any demons. I didn't think there was a
yeah,
lot of dew. I just thought just poor batting when it came to chasing. Now,
yeah,
just I think a few things you mentioned. Firstly, Haris, I think has been a bit of a disappointment, Mohammad Haris, because I think
yeah,
everybody kept talking about how he was missed in the T20 World Cup, right? And the fact that he was overlooked due to
yeah,
favoritism, nepotism, whatever. But I
yeah,
think you can see in front of you, right? He just lacks consistency and he hasn't really developed his game, right?
yeah,
So that's been quite disappointing because I think now he's fallen below the pecking order, below the likes of Ghulam, Herrera. And the reason I
yeah,
mention Herrera is I know he's got stars, but I've liked the positive intent. I've
yeah,
liked the his ability to sort of just you know accelerate, and
yeah,
also he's got talent, right?
yeah,
And I like his approach. I like his attacking,
yeah,
aggressive way of doing things, and also I think if he can be groomed, I
yeah,
think he can be one for the future because he does seem a little more sensible than Sam Ayub, right? There's no look
yeah,
shots that come out here, every third
yeah,
ball. Like it's more, you can
yeah,
be positive without being reckless, and I think Herrera does that. I just wish he had a few longer innings to prove
yeah,
himself out fully because I think from talent perspective, I think he goes right to the top. But
yeah,
unfortunately, I think in terms of the numbers, I mean, you mentioned
yeah,
Kamran Ghulam, who probably edges him out.
yeah.
But I do think he's one to year mark out because
But
I like his stroke play. Now,
yeah,
this big disappointment, as I mentioned, Mohammad Haris, Abdullah Shafiq,
yeah,
where is he? Like, what's happened to him?
yeah,
Either he's spending too much time on the guitar, if you remember that thing, or whatever it is. I
yeah,
don't know what happens. I think we as a nation do not know how to deal with sudden stardom, right? Abdullah Shafiq averaging 60 in his first few test matches, suddenly catapulted to the
yeah,
next big thing in Pakistan cricket, and suddenly they're unable to deal with that sort of pressure or they let it get to their
yeah,
heads. So that has been
yeah.
really disappointing because I know Abdullah
I'm,
Shafiq. Gone.
I'm waiting for the next time in the PSL he gets a run of ball 50 and he's going to like put his finger to the lip and like, tell the crowd.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a bit disappointing, right? Because we thought he could be our next all format player if Babar Azam is failing, and I genuinely think he could be a number three in across formats. But
Yeah.
if opening isn't suiting him anymore, but he's just not delivering the goods, right? So he was one that's a bit
Yeah.
disappointment, a bit disappointing.
I don't know if
And
Hasnan being top wicket taker is
see,
like
I
disappointing
don't
for the
know.
rest of them, or he's actually
Yeah,
improved.
I mean, look, I think it's good that his pace is there, but I think it's his pace that's getting him the wickets.
Yeah.
I think it's just our sort of substandard batters, second tier batters, struggle with pace, right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we've missed Esanola; he didn't play.
Yeah.
I think he would have been really good. I think he has more potential than Hasnan, but I think Hasnan warrants being given a shot now. I think he's
Yeah.
had enough by way of good performances that
Yeah.
maybe it's the same problem he has as with everyone else. When they get put under pressure, they lose their head, right? They
Yeah.
scramble minds. But I guess
Yeah.
that'll only get better with practice. But
But I
the
think
one
yeah,
thing that this
I think the
tells me is
incumbents have yeah, I think the incumbents have left the door pretty wide open anyway, right? So
exactly, and it's really, really like, I mean, our famed bowling attack. Anyone who's been with us from the start, our first ever episode, laughed at how India's bowling, everyone thought was better than Pakistan, and we were like, oh, what rubbish, all that. And really, the
yeah.
joke's on us. I mean, it is like there is. I would put Pakistan probably not even in the top five bowling attacks at this rate, and it's
Yeah.
when you have still as your spinner Osama Mir as the Shane Warne of Pakistan, the way he bamboozles bowlers,
Yeah.
that says something. Although I will say, in fairness, I've enjoyed watching him bowl.
Yeah.
When he gets the flight and the guile, I can imagine him being quite good. It's just that either he lets
Yeah.
the pressure get into him, he bowls lots of full tosses, half trackers in big
Yeah.
games. But if he gets it right, like he did against South Africa in that World Cup match as well, the ODI World Cup
Yeah.
match, he has that style of his that just slower in the air, spins the ball. I don't know.
Yeah.
A part of me likes the look of him. Maybe it's a case of not having played a lot of international cricket of late. Suddenly you become a hot celebrity in Pakistan. Now Brad
Yeah.
Ahmed is pushed to the back seat because he played a few games, and we all saw how average he was. So I don't know. But
Yeah.
all I am saying is that there are like potential benefits here. I have a question for you, Zaid. What happened to
Yeah.
Usman Qadir?
I don't know. It's a strange one, right? I mean, I think he went to Australia and then he disappeared. He had some issues with Babar Azam, probably their besties, and they had some personal issues. I don't know. He's just disappeared. It's a strange one. To be honest, I don't know. But you mentioned Osama Mir. I think Zahid Mahmood's also done pretty decent. What I think partly might be the issue again, not to be negative, is just you're bowling against Pakistanis, at the end of the day, right, who are notorious against leg spin in any
In
way. So it might just be of that. When you're bowling, when you are the best leg spinner in the country or so-called best leg spinner in the country, but you're bowling against rather average batters who don't know how to play you anyway. But yeah, about Usman Qadir, I'm not really sure. Just one last point on Haris that you mentioned as well, just to go back to him. I think part of the issue might be, and although I think before the tournament was a good move to making captain ahead of Babar and Shan, right? So I think, but maybe that's gotten to him a little bit. Maybe he's been starstruck because if you look at his batting positions, he's been batting at like 8, 7, 9 at times. So I think maybe he's a little bit under pressure because of that. He's not just doesn't have a stable batting position. It could be a bit of that as well, where he's probably
Potentially, I think it's a
cap
fair point.
in a
Yeah.
team where you have Babar Azam and your white ball and your red ball captain. I don't know what sort of draft team composition was that in any case, but then and you made Harris became the captain, so it was a bit
I
strange,
didn't
so
like
you
that move, to be honest. I don't
yeah.
think, I would rather Shan Masood was captain, not because he's being considered, well, one, you could consider him for captaincy across formats,
Mm.
because I know he's not yet in your ODI team, but I can't say the incumbent players are, doing great things either, right?
Yeah,
But I just think at least he has experience with captaincy, and it would allow you to judge everybody based on talent, right? And
yeah,
avoid other distractions. For me, Mohammad Haris, this is a very important cup for him because he
yeah,
needs to come back into national reckoning with full force. Yes, ideal if you can bat well and captain well and lift the trophy, But if that comes at the
Yeah.
expense of poor batting, I don't think it's worth it. I much rather you just bat really well and you get slotted in irrespective of whether you end up on the winning team or not. Because for me, I
Yeah.
think, I know we go back to those 1 or 2 innings that these guys play, but if you just think that that is a microcosm of what these players could be, Haris, there's this X factor that we talk about, and Haris does have it. It's just a
Yeah.
question of one, him sacrificing himself at the expense of the team. And many inexperienced captains do that because they don't want to appear as if they're favoring themselves. They want to keep everyone happy, especially with big personalities in the team. You give in. Right. Either if you want to make Haris captain, maybe make him captain of a team where he is the one of the undisputed experienced campaigners. But you've made him
Yeah.
captain in probably the most experienced outfit from a batting perspective out there. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I wasn't a big fan of the move, and I think you can see right now that unfortunately, they're going to base it on numbers, right? Because Pakistan
Yeah.
does not play much into context. We look at the numbers and be like, right, these are the players who go in, these are the players who go out. Simple as. And unfortunately, Haris will probably be on the other side of it unless he
Yeah.
can resurrect himself.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's, you know, overall, not just Harris specifically, I think some of the ideas were right. I think to have the tournament, I guess the timing maybe not the best. But as we said in the beginning, I don't think our final 15 on the back of this tournament is going to be exceptionally different. I mean, the only other player we didn't mention is Usman Khan, who's had a good tournament again. But
Yeah.
again, he's been very good domestically, and then
Yes,
he's like,
you see, I didn't even want to mention him, Zahid, because he was so ordinary when he played against India and everybody, in fact, that I just
yeah,
think that he is not made out for international cricket. The issue is there's a bit of sympathy vote in there. The
yeah,
amount that he's given up to be here, right? But I think you need to call that, you know,
yeah,
and stop letting that influence the decision making. Because I
yeah,
thought he was really ordinary. He was quite embarrassing to have as a number 3 batter of a supposedly leading team
yeah,
in the World Cup. So I don't think that he's gonna. He's one I think will continue to play. The only issue here we're gonna have is Fakhar Zaman's opening partner.
yeah,
Abdullah Shafiq is woefully out of form. Imam ul Haq, I think, still has fitness issues. I don't think he's fit enough. You either go with Sam Ayub and you say, you know what, I'm gonna go back him. He could be a good all round option, or you go with a Herrera or a you know Ghulam, or you go with Usman Khan, who actually is an opener, right? By preference. So you have a few options there. I can't tell you that one will be significantly better than the other,
yeah.
unfortunately.
True, true. No,
Or
let's see.
Shan
Let's see
Masood
how.
and make him captain, but here you go.
Yeah, let's see. Let's see. But yeah, I think moving on. I guess lots said about the Champions Cup. Look, I mean, I think it's in the final stages now. I think the result from a results point of view, to be honest, it is irrelevant, or from a
Should be
neutral
relevant,
point of
yeah.
view, it is irrelevant. It shouldn't be more, the talent and the players that have come through, which hasn't really said a lot more. Um, but anyways, moving on. I think the India Bangladesh test, of course, as expected. If you just looked at the scorecard, India won the toss, batted first in Chennai. That should have been game over. I mean, yeah, 280 run victory, pretty comprehensive, but they were in trouble.
Absolutely.
145 for 6 on day one. You thought Bangladesh, the Pakistan victory wasn't a fluke, which it probably wasn't, but
Yeah, I was going to say
but
all the
yeah,
Bangladesh fans, I think, this unsubscribe button right about now. No,
yeah.
no, no. Let's make clear.
Uh,
Um, I think in the first session or first couple of sessions, it was not about Bangladesh beating us by fluke. It was more about thinking, actually, you know what? We as in
yeah,
Pakistan are probably not that bad. Maybe
yeah,
we're up against a really empowered side here. But then India showed their strength, their bench strength, their depth in
yeah,
batting, that Ashwin comes in and strikes a magnificent century, and one that you might argue would fit into their probably one of their all-time list had it probably been for a more high-profile team. I'll let
yeah,
you comment on that, but in a second. But
yeah,
I just think with Ravichandran Ashwin, he loves Chennai. right? With both bat and ball, especially with the ball. And it's not an easy place to bat, even if you're batting first, right? So for him to have scored that in the circumstances, and let's not forget Ravi Jadeja. I think everyone gives him a
Yeah.
lot of flack for being a, you know, Sanjay Manjrekar said it the first time about bits and pieces cricketer, and you always feel as if he's always trying to prove himself time and again.
Yeah.
Whether it's with his batting or his bowling, because he's one of those people where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, right? When you add the batting and the bowling, you're like, well, he's a decent bowler, he's a decent
Yeah.
bat, and he's an excellent fielder. But when you put it all together, he always has this fire in him, and I feel he has this thing in his head where he just has to constantly prove himself to the world that he belongs. Right?
Yeah.
You feel that in his batting. It's some things it's a bit unfair on him because you feel you can sense the pressure, but equally I also feel it's also great to watch somebody who cares so much about being part of the team, right? And you can see that emotion and passion, and you know,
Yeah.
he never gets complacent and he gives it his 100%. So although he was fantastic, and he realized soon enough that he had to play a more of a second fiddle role because Ashwin was
Yeah.
just hitting it beautifully. But
Yeah.
in any case, but yeah, I mean, what a phenomenal innings! And once India got that first innings total, it was game over,
There
right?
was
It
there
was
was
that.
no coming. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that really is remarkable about that Ashwin inning as well is the pace of it. I mean, he scored at 80 plus strike rate,
That's
and when
insane.
you're six down, we could have been excused to that play, playing at a 35, 40 strike rate, seeing it through, getting 45 of 150 balls or whatever. But he took the game to them. Hit a couple of sixes, and again, so don't mean to bring Pakistan into an India Bangladesh test match. No political puns intended. But if this was a Pakistani innings, this quite easily could have been a contender for Pakistan's top five, right? Given
hundred
the context of
percent.
the
I mean,
game and
hundred
everything.
percent. I mean, we've got
But I
Kamran
think,
Akmal in there, we've got Inzamam in there against Bangladesh. So
but I
absolutely, I
think
completely agree
from
with you.
yeah, but as we discussed in our previous episode, like from an Indian point of view, this probably wouldn't end up making it to the top 10 or top 15 or maybe top 20, given there's
Maybe,
so many different. But and Ashwin has done it, maybe not to this extent in terms of scale with 100. I mean, he's got a couple of hundreds, but he's done it so many times where he has Jadeja and Ashwin both. I remember a couple of years ago against England, they were in a similar situation, and it was Jadeja and Akshar Patel, I think it was, who kind of batted them out of trouble. So they've always had this habit of doing it. But again, from Bangladesh point of view, at least they know how the Pakistanis feel as well, where they've got through the core
So,
batting.
I think we want to just discuss that for a second, right? Did Bangladesh get complacent? Because I think they did. And
Yeah.
I think it's very easy for a team that's not used to being in that position against India in this case, right? A high quality
Mm.
team to really just, take a moment and just say, you know what, let's just enjoy the next 20 minutes or so because we really deserve it. We've really pulled our
Yeah.
heart out. We got that 145 for six. The game's not going to change much in the next 10, 20 minutes. So let's just enjoy it for a
Yeah.
second and just take the pressure off
Yeah.
ourselves. When you do that, the 10 minutes become 20, the 20 minutes become 30 minutes, the 30 minutes become 40 minutes, and suddenly you feel like you've lost momentum. And
Yeah.
to regain momentum is very difficult. The greatest sides in the world, Australia, England, even India now, you'd find that they had this killer instinct. When they had you, and the Australian team of old is a classic example of
Yeah.
it, when they had you on the ropes, they used to go all out. They used to bring their best bowlers in and be like, let's just finish it off. No,
Yeah.
we're taking no prisoners. We're taking no chances. We're literally going to end the game now, right? They, in fact, double down on the pressure. They double down
Exactly.
because they're like, we've got in such a position. We want to get home early. Just go for the
Yeah.
kill. And that killer instinct, which Imran Khan talked a lot about back in the day, Pakistan had a bit of that in the late 80s. You had the West Indies team, the great West Indies team that had that in full force with its fast bowling resources. But somehow Bangladesh lacked it. And it's not like they didn't have the resources. If you have the
Yeah.
resources to get a batting powerhouse down to 6 wickets down on day one, you have the bowling resources to finish off the job. I just
Yeah.
think that it was mental more than it was
Yeah.
skills.
I
Yes,
think
Ashwin played brilliantly, but I felt as if Bangladesh should. Oh, doesn't matter, 4 or 6 or, and then when the momentum left, it's so tough to regain it.
Yeah.
I think this is a lesson that Bangladesh will learn here. They will rue that missed opportunity. Do I think Bangladesh would have won the test match had they bundled India out for like under 200? I don't know. Probably not, because I just
Yeah.
Ashwin and India just know how to win in India.
Yeah, I mean, chasing
Um,
120 on the last day would have been tough, and Ashwin, he got a 6-4 eventually as well. So,
exactly. So I mean, for me, that wouldn't
um,
have changed things, but I
yeah,
just think it would have made the game a lot more exciting, and it would have
yeah,
given Bangladesh a better statement that's reflective of their
yeah,
talent.
yeah. And I think, you mentioned the thing about, how they might have gotten, let's enjoy these 10, 15 minutes, whatever. I think that's why the pace of the innings was very important, right? Because, within half an hour, 7, 8 overs, they were scoring at 5, 6 in overs. So they
Exactly.
were 30, 35 runs, already into the partnership. Whereas again, not to bring Pakistan into it because it's just the most relatable example.
Most
Pakistan would have
recent as
like
well. Yeah.
Pakistan would have dead batted it at worst, at best dead batted it, just survived 7 overs and scored like 5 runs, and then you would have been like, okay, it doesn't really matter because the game hasn't gone away from them. Whereas in this situation, it was not just time, but the pace of the runs, which meant that the game just kept getting further and
Totally
further
agree.
away. So yeah, I think part of it is that, and look, I mean, and once India had that 300 plus in the first innings, there was no chance.
No chance.
Obviously, Bumrah was phenomenal in the first innings, as always, with the ball, and Ashwin doing his thing in Chennai. Fourth innings, 6 wickets. No surprises there. And of course, shout out to Rishabh Pant for 100 as well. Him and Shubman Gill again in the second innings. Although India were 200 and something runs ahead, they were three down for pretty early, and then Gill and Pant had a huge partnership, which was kind
And
of
it's
game
good
over.
to see that India's next generation,
Yeah,
in this case, Shubman Gill in particular, but I think Pant has a few years as well,
mm,
came to the party, right? I mean, it
yeah.
wasn't a reliance on Kohli or, in the olden days, but,
And I
or
think that's the other thing to look at, right? So all the other batters, so I think six. What was it? Wait, so Jadeja got 80, Ashwin got 100, Gill and Pant got hundreds, and then Jaiswal got 50 in the first. So you had what, 6 or 7 50 plus scores across the test match for India, and none of them were from their most senior batters, right? No Rohit Sharma, no Kohli, no KL Rahul, and yet you've had other batters coming in and scoring. So again, from their point of view, it's a massive thing, right? Where they've ended up um, getting runs from pretty much everywhere. Whereas
yeah,
again,
no,
not
I
relying
totally.
on their core. But yeah, I mean, there's not much more we can say about this. It was at the end of the day, if you look at the scorecard, it's a very routine Indian performance and an Indian victory, right? So not much more to say on that.
Yeah, and I mean nothing. I
I
mean, I
think
think in terms of big, big headlines, Afghanistan beating South Africa in an ODI series, not just a one-off. It is an ODI series. Is nothing short of monumental. Now,
yeah,
I know people will say, "Oh, would South Africa have their full strength team?" I'm like, look, I mean, they may be missing a couple of names, but it was still a pretty strong outfit that played. And you would have expected them 9 out of 10 times to beat Afghanistan, especially in a 50-over game, right? It's not 20 overs where anything can happen, it's 50 overs. And Afghanistan just were on top from the beginning. And what was great to see was it wasn't the bowling that set them
yeah,
up for victory, it's the batting. I mean, when you score
yeah,
312, I mean, the Afghanistan of old would always, be jittery with the bat and do really well with the ball and then come close to winning. But now with their batting going past 300 against a pretty, a strong South African bowling attack is nothing short of exemplary, right? I mean, now I think, and it's not just one man reliant. Yes, Gurbaz is their premier batter, who, by
yeah,
the way, I know he doesn't get enough talk because he's from Afghanistan. If he was Pakistani, Indian, or whatever, he'd be a superstar by now. But that guy, from a consistency
yeah,
perspective, is probably one of the best limited overs batters going around right now. Even more so because he plays for a team that heavily relies on him, right? So anyone who says that, oh, it actually counts against you if the whole team relies on you, well, look at Gurbaz. But anyways, coming back to my point, is that he was brilliant, but everyone around him supported
yeah,
very well. So now I look at that batting lineup and I'm like, it's not just one name I need to get out; it's a couple of names.
yeah,
And to complement that with, of course, Afghanistan's great strength in bowling and spin in particular is just magnificent, right? I mean, do I think they're the second best team in the subcontinent? Yes.
White ball, yes.
White ball, yeah, I'm talking white ball.
Yeah.
It's very tough to judge them. I mean,
Maybe not too far from, well, red ball with Bangladesh is probably second best, or Sri Lanka. We'll come to them as well. But I think the thing that about Afghanistan that really surprised me, not surprised me, but really impressed me in a way was the margins of the victory. Right, in the first two games, they bowled South Africa out for 130 and 105 or 106, and that just shows the quantum of the victory as well. Winning by 170
yeah.
runs, by 6 wickets with half the game to spare. So that's a huge thing. I think they've not got a squeaky wins, last ball inside edge four or something like that. These have been proper professional wins, right? So that's really impressive. And yes, Gurbaz, Rashid, they've all been phenomenal. But it's the whole team, and when you win so comprehensively, you have to give credit to all of them. I think that's part of it. Yes, they lost the last match, but I think didn't really
And
matter because
Jonathan Trott, that
yeah,
guy, clearly there's a plan, there's a
yeah,
process, right? He doesn't go on a whim. Like there's a clear cut definition of roles across the team. Everyone is given a
mm,
clearly defined role, right?
yeah,
Yeah, and it's and that clarity is refreshing because you can see it, right? Someone has the aggressive role in a batting partnership, someone has the wicket taking role in a bowling partnership.
yeah,
Everything is so clearly thought out that he's actually, look, Afghanistan are very talented, but I think
yeah,
the results he's getting, and this often will be the case, you can actually not just maximize your talent, but also
yeah,
exceed the talent potential by complementing it with
yeah,
tactical awareness, right? And
yeah.
and strategically acute thinking. And I thought I mean, whether it's the captain or whether it's the coach, I don't know, but I would give credit to Jonathan Trott because he's been at the helm for a while now, and it's now bearing
Yeah,
fruit.
yeah, I know. And I guess the only thing last thing on a lighter note for this series is again a Pakistani comparison, but Temba Bavuma probably is to South African cricket in terms of memes and trolls what Babar Azam is to Pakistan cricket,
It has
right?
now become to Pakistan. Yes, what a guy.
I mean, losing to Afghanistan, I mean, again, from South Africa's point of view, it's a big, big defeat. Obviously, him being captain. So I'm sure he's going to be victim of a lot of memes and trolls.
Yeah, I mean, I question
Although,
why Macron isn't captain. I can understand.
yeah, it's strange. So yeah, and you mentioned Asian test teams, and well, who's the top team in Asia? If you're playing at home, obviously India is the king, but Sri Lanka aren't far away. Easy win for them against New Zealand. Again, a very routine win if you look at it on paper. Batting first, putting up a decent score. It was a close match and then obviously day four chasing in goal. It's impossible, right? And then you have the Sri Lankan spinners eating up New Zealand. So
Yeah, so there is an element of toss there, right? I mean,
yeah,
would I think the result have been different had the toss been the other way around? I'm not sure, but I do think
yeah,
in goal in particular, the toss is everything, right? And
yeah,
especially if it's the home advantage, right? I mean, there was a big debate a few years ago, and it was post Sri Lanka Australia series back in 2014 when Rangana Herat and you had all the big names of Jayawardene
mm,
Sanka. Sri Lanka were formidable, and so was Australia at the time. And there was a big thing because the toss played such a big role. There was many people saying that actually the away team should be given the option to bowl first
yeah,
in every test match, right? Or some people said, oh, bat first in again depending on the conditions, because just to negate some of that home advantage, because the home team prepares the wicket, the home team
yeah,
prepares everything to their strengths. So to negate it, only in Test cricket you give the away team the chance to do away with the toss, and in the case of goal, bat first. So in the case of a bowling friendly condition, bowl first, right? If you don't accept that, then it goes to a toss where it's 50-50.
yeah,
Now obviously I'm not here to debate that with you. We'll probably use another session for it, but I'm just saying that there is a big toss element here. But to take nothing away from Sri Lanka, I think, I mean, they keep coming up with great Mendises. I mean, now there's a new Mendes on the block,
yeah,
and it's excellent. It's great to see. And my only worry with Sri Lanka is the inconsistency. Right now,
yeah,
they were very good at the end in the last Test match against England, right? So it's not a one-off. Although I think England were also atrocious in the last Test, but I do think they're up and down, right? One day, they
yeah,
remind me of well, I hate to. I'm not. I'm going to resist the comparison that I'm going to make right now. So I'm not going to make it. But they're like a very, they're like a team that has talent.
Yeah.
I don't think as much talent as some of the other teams in the subcontinent, but on their day they make the most of it. But when it's
Mm.
not their day, that talent gap starts
Yeah.
showing, right? Especially for me in their bowling, right? I think in their bowling across conditions, there's something, you
Yeah.
know, to be worked on there. But for some reason, all these subcontinental teams do really well against Sena teams at home, except Pakistan. And then literally freeze when they play India. I
Yeah.
don't know what it is. And
Yeah.
that I include Pakistan there. But yes,
Yeah, it's strange. I think the only other thing on this is this test, but I'm not sure if you saw it. It's become a meme as well. It's probably going to be remembered for the worst ever review taken in international cricket. I think it was either Mendes or Jasuria, one of the bowling to Rachin Ravindra, and he forward defended it middle of the bat.
middle
And
of
they went up to and they
as
went
a
up
clear
to
back.
appeal and review.
We need ultra edge on that, please. No, there's no edge.
um,
It's the middle of the bat. But yeah,
so yeah, I don't know what waste of time that was, but anyways, that might be one of the most memorable things to come out of that test match. But so yeah, I think that's been a good wrap up of happenings around the world. There's been a lot of cricket going on, international cricket. I think Pakistan, oh, and of course Australia, England, they've been playing as well. Um,
so that it has been crazy, right? I
yeah,
mean, England somehow have just lost their mojo, right? Clearly, I mean, I don't know what's happened. Their batting has been abysmal, chasing a pretty ordinary 274 in the second ODI. They were terrible, right? I mean,
yeah,
they were what, 70 for 5, and they just capitulated. And
yeah,
for me, I just, now you're beginning to see that England's style of play only works when you have extraordinary talent. The once in a generation talent that you had 4 years ago, where all those highly talented players were all coincidentally in their prime at the same time. Right? It's once
yeah,
in a generation talent, being capitalized there. But the philosophy, baseball, whatever you call it, does not quite work when the skill and the talent isn't quite up to the mark, right? I mean, it requires some insane hand-eye coordination and talent and skill and shot selection, etc., to get that level of consistency in results that they achieved under Morgan. And now you're beginning to realize it's not the philosophy that used to win, that used to set them apart. Yes, to some extent, the philosophy, the fearlessness did help, especially when they infiltrated that across the domestic infrastructure back in 2015. I completely accept that.
yeah,
But the philosophy is only as good as the talent that's sort of representing it. And
yeah,
I think you will find that it was not the philosophy, it was the talent that set them apart. Right now, the talent is not what it was, or at least people are past their prime or not in form. And England need to come up with a plan B. You can't do this baseball. I mean, there's clearly a middle ground between a ultra defensive innings and a baseball innings, and they need to find that and calibrate that properly. That it
yeah,
works best for the resources that they have with the bat.
yeah.
That's
Especially when
that's
you're
my
chasing 270, right? I mean,
exactly. You
it's
exactly
not that you're
that. You
chasing
don't need
400.
exactly. And 274, I know in back in the day they used to smack it, but even back in the day against even the amazing teams, they used to struggle against
Yeah,
middling scores. So I remember
yeah,
when again the 2019 World Cup, which they won, the game they lost was against Sri Lanka when they couldn't chase 240 odd, right?
yeah,
So it's those innings that actually create that confusion and the
yeah,
double-mindedness, in their heads, which is what causes wickets. When you're chasing 350, it's easy. You know that well, I don't say it's easy, but from a mental perspective, it's easy because you know what style you have to play, right? You
yeah,
are given a license to play that. But when you're chasing 250, there's a part of you that's like, well, do I go? Do I wait? And it's that hesitation that isn't quite right,
mhm,
right? And because you're also fearing the media, the press scrutiny after, if let's say you go
yeah,
gung ho and it doesn't work,
yeah,
and it doesn't pay off, right? And then
yeah,
everybody's be like, well, hold on a second. You could have just done what everybody's been doing for the last 40, 50 years and just chased it normally like a normal team,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
When it doesn't pay off, it looks terrible. and that's what you're seeing right now.
True. And then lastly, I think Australia again. This Australian team again, not probably the best you would say on on paper compared to all the Australian teams we've seen in the past 30 odd years, but they've got the record now, the second most consecutive wins in ODIs, 14 I think it is.
I,
Um, I think that the record is 21, which is Australia of 2003, which was the the
I mean,
invincible
the
team.
invincible team. Yes, yes, of
Yeah.
course.
But again, sorry to bring Pakistan into this again, but there's a good chance they might end up doing 5-0 in against England. And then they might go for the record because they have three against Pakistan coming up after
Well,
that,
and we
which
will
would
give it to
be
them on a silver platter,
in
and also
Australia.
in
So,
Australia. Look, so the one thing I will say with um, with England, just come back to him for a second. Harry Brook said,
Mhm.
"Oh, I don't mind this style of play. You just keep hitting it because on another day that would have gone for
Yeah,
six." And you're like, "Yeah, on another day it might have, but on another
yeah,
4 days it won't. It'll be out, right?" I mean, there's
exactly.
something called percentage play. Google it, right?
Yeah,
That's the difference between I said this at the start, recklessness and positive intent. It's about hitting shots that
yeah,
have a high percentage probability of success, right? It's never 100%, but you need to choose your shots. If you're going to hit a cross batted, like, pull shot against a fast bowler when it's not on your arc, it's outside off stump, and you're just closing your eyes and just whacking it across the line,
yeah,
it looks amazing in the 1 out of 7 attempts that it comes off. But the other times it looks terrible, right? So it was a
yeah,
whole Shahid Afridi mantra. Shahid Afridi looked amazing when it did really well, and then he
yeah,
looked so hopeless when it
yeah,
did. And it starts getting a bit frustrating when they sort of make these statements because it points to a lack of self-awareness or a form of denial. It's like this
yeah,
denial that no, we're not doing anything wrong. Oh yeah, oh
yeah.
yeah, and he said, I was quite unlucky that some of the Australian risks
Mm.
that they took fell safely. And you're like, yes, but they also hit the shots knowing that there were no fielders there. In some cases, yes, they got lucky, but so did England in some
Yeah,
instances. So it all evens out, I believe.
yeah. I don't know
Question
if
of
it's like it's an England thing, or I don't know if it's arrogance or something, where even this decision about making Harry Brook the captain, right? I mean, the guy is not he's not even played like 20 ODI or something. He's not played a
exactly. I
lot,
mean,
right?
what great.
So I don't. Yeah, and not just ODIs. He's not. It's not like he's been around for too long. He's
I mean,
played a
he
few
wasn't
test
even a
matches.
short shot in the 23 ODI World Cup, if you recall.
Exactly right. So I just don't get whether they're trying to be too different or just trying to make a statement every time they do something. We're like, oh, we're going to make Harry Brook the captain just to make a statement. Again, if you look at the team on paper, there's no other natural captain. Adil Rashid technically in terms of experience was there. Liam Livingstone, you can argue, maybe even Ben Duckett, Phil Salt, I don't know, one of those guys. But I mean, that's what I'm saying, right? You've made Harry Brook the captain, but like, why? you know,
Like, what is that
um,
based on? Yeah,
exactly. So it's just it just seems like they're just trying to make a statement with everything they do. We're
I agree.
aggressive. We're going to go out and we're going to do it. And sometimes you just need to be a bit more sensible about these things. And look, okay, it's not a very exotic choice, but I think Adil Rashid probably should have been their captain because he is the most senior player, and probably would have been a better choice.
I agree.
Anyways, I did, yeah. English cricket, they'd always they always keep things exciting. But which is not something you can say about English cricket, at least in the last 50 years. But
But there you
but
go.
I think that covers all the international and domestic cricket going on. I think Pakistan are the only team that we've mentioned that have played domestic cricket. Otherwise, lots going on the international circuit. Slightly different episode, but we'll come back with our greatest test innings soon. So keep watching us and please subscribe to the channel. Thank you.
Thank you.